All right, awesome. So we're gonna do it one more time. Howdy. Howdy. You will do that so much here at A&M. Just a heads up if y'all haven't already got that. It's part of our charm. I'm originally from South Carolina. If you can't tell, I sound like cornbread and collard greens a little bit on top. So that's where I'm from. And I originally, so just to talk about my journey. So I have a master's in applied clinical. And so I was a therapist for about 8.5 years. So did that, and then changed fields, went into student affairs, now work in recruitment at the Graduate and Professional School. And I am currently also in my first year of a doctoral program as well here at A&M in the College of Education with Human Resource Development. So I'm also a graduate student too. I don't know what's going to happen. Things happen.
Strange time out.
It's okay. Awesome. And so just to give you a little background about where I do, and then also recruitment wise, I get to help with all 300 programs across our system that we have for graduate programs, including some of the ones that you guys are interested in within College of Architecture. And I also get to work closely with Dr. Garcia and so, as well as Dr. Reed with those efforts. And so we're definitely here to talk a little bit about what graduate school at A&M looks like, what are some supports our office offers, also to get you thinking a little bit about, like, what do you want, right? For graduate school, what does that look like? So I'm a big reflection person. That's why I told you my background was clinical therapy, because I'm a reflection person, right? I want you to get in touch with, like, what are your core values? What do you want, right? How do you want to move in the world? So first reflection prompt that I'll give you. What would earning an advanced degree change for you? Anyone who wants to answer.
Oh, I can answer that for you. So, for me, this advanced degree gives me the opportunity to become the first to obtain such an advanced degree in my immediate family. Also, earning the degree would elevate my recognition in the industry, especially because of the type of university that it's coming from, and then I would along with that. Also, another caveat is the extensive certification process. It's going to be not only nationally recognized, but also internationally recognized. So that's what earning an advanced degree change for me.
Awesome, so many positives. Anybody else want to answer what that might be?
So for me, in terms of PhD, PhD is a lot about like digging deeper into the whole research part of, for me, in the case of architecture, and I honestly believe in design, like research-based design. So for me, it will be a huge milestone to like dig deeper into the whole research part and study for that. In order to, in the future, become a professor and also share that knowledge.
Amazing, amazing. One more person.
Yeah, I think it will equip you to the specialization and knowledge and into the future jobs.
Yeah, of course, so lots of good themes there, like, you know, kind of being a trailblazer in the family, to really being a part of that knowledge collective, and creating that and being able to then bring that to the next generation. And, you know, whether that's being a faculty or a researcher, being able to grow those skill sets, getting access to those certifications and that prestige that come from an R1 institution like A&M. So all of those elements add to that. For my folks who weren't able to answer, just thinking about, what does that mean for you? What does that look like for you? What does it change for you as a person? Hey, so just to talk a little bit about the difference between an undergrad and graduate identity, I always just like to touch on it, because undergrad, which I know you guys know, sometimes it can feel a little bit like a passive learning experience sometimes, unless you're getting your feet wet and getting in to do some like experiments or different research opportunities or really active in certain things. But you know, you have that student role, a lot of breadth over depth. And then a lot of recipient of knowledge, very lecture based sometimes versus discussion, right? And the graduate level, I will say, which a lot of you probably are doing on your level, because if you weren't here, right? You're probably doing something above and beyond in undergrad, but that's gonna be times 10 in graduate school, right? The expectation of you being a part of not only the classroom collective, but the brain power of that, right? So bringing your thoughts, your ideas, your reflections, your implications to the knowledge that they're giving you about what's happening, and then applying that into whatever field you're going in, right? And really going deep, right? My friend who wants to do that PhD, you're gonna go deep, real deep into the topic that you want to go into, right? And working with people in the field and your professors with those knowledges, and really learning how to analyze and synthesize information to a point where even if someone like me who has a psych degree or is going to do this field can understand what you're trying to do, right? And understand it well. Very self-directed. Yes, sir.
Yeah, you said it so fast.
I'm sorry.
Your undergrad is in psych?
Yeah, my undergrad and my master's. I was a therapist for 8 years.
Okay. And then your PhD is in,
Human resource development. That's what I'm working on.
okay.
Which that's totally okay too, if your background was not in what you decide to pursue later. Too. Just, people, sometimes there could be like a misunderstanding of that too. Did I answer your question?
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
You're welcome. And then adding to the intellectual leadership and the knowledge economy, as well. Full-time course load can look a little different, 9 hours. Typically, high standards, high standards, are expected, right? Because we're pursuing excellence, right? We're continuing to be that, and to pursue that. And so that's what we're doing. Work-life balances. A lot of students might work a couple of different jobs, or they might have fellowships that help sustain them, or different types of funding that help do that. I'm going to talk about at the university level through our office what that looks like, and how you can apply for some of those things, and also some opportunities to work like alongside your research librarian and tools, different things like that to learn about external fellowship opportunities and what that might go for. Okay. What I'm gonna ask you guys to do is to you can do either break off with people who are not by you, or stay by you, whatever you want to do. I'm gonna let you pick your poison. But I want you to get into like about groups of 2 or 3 and talk about what transferable skills do you already possess that prepare you for grad study. So like, what if you feel like it's communication skills, if you feel like it's your time management skills, if you feel like I've already been doing some research, so I already have my feet wet, I already been doing field work, I know how some of this works, or I have a friend who does that, so I have some institutional knowledge of how that works from the graduate level of what I want to pursue. So I want y'all to get up into pairs or triplets and kind of talk through what stuff you bring to the table already that equips you to go into graduate school. And we'll take about 2-3 minutes and to discuss that in our pairs. Sound good? Okay.
So,
Howdy. Let's go together as a collective. Howdy. Awesome, awesome. We're gonna come back together. We also like to do that to come back together too. Awesome. Okay, I want 1 to 2 groups to give me just a little short feedback of what y'all kind of learned about your group mates, of what kind of transferable skills that you guys have already that equip you. You can talk with you however you want for the group, like, or for you, or however you feel most comfortable.
I feel like we all have in common communication skills. We had a lot of like work with some of us have teaching experience and you end up not having these like communication skills.
Okay. Awesome. Who else wants to go? One more group. Yes.
Yeah. With my group, my friend here, so in particular, my undergrad was in urban planning, of course, and after that, I went with the city planning for some like 3 years and all that. So I actually have exposure to the real world, how planning is implemented on the ground, right? And with that, working on the field, I realized that some of the things we study here is not what we actually implement on the ground, but we still have issues in the communities and all that, where we have to now go into research and see if we can find alternatives to how to implement these things, right? So that's actually what pushed me to go further for masters in urban planning, where I'm currently studying right now, and also research assistant as well. So that kind of opened me to the perspective of research, right?
Yeah.
At the master's level, which I think I can take a PhD, then that
No
would
thanks,
broadly, right? Yeah, and my friend here, he works in the industry. I mean, he actually designed real architecture, right?
Yeah.
The real building, which is implemented in his home country, right?
Okay.
So he felt like taking a PhD or master's here is what it's going. pay him more and equip him with some skills.
Awesome. So we're seeing a lot of us already have those homegrown skills, right? That transfer really well into what you probably want to do, for graduate school. Let's move. Let's talk about career pathways. So I know, so some people, let's go around the room and tell me kind of what type of degrees you are interested in. So I'm gonna go through them really quickly. And I know there's different types in here that you guys are already probably a little bit interested in here, and we'll talk about that. So first off, we talk about master's degrees. So there's different types, right? There's coursework only, which is non-thesis. And then you have thesis options, which is research-based, where you might have, thesis questions, move through that, like an MS or an MA, or even a professional master's degree, like a master's of business administration. Then we have doctoral degrees, which are research intensive. So PhD, Doctor of Public Health, DE, programs that really emphasize that scholarship, like my friend here who wants to become a professor, right? And then professional degrees, these are going to be your doctors, your lawyers, your pharmacists, all that good stuff. Dentists, we have all of those schools. They're not located at our main campus, but like Fort Worth, different areas in Houston, where we do have all of those opportunities, as well as the doctorate of nursing practitioner. So let's go around the room and talk about kind of what type of degree within architecture here, or just in general, you're interested in. And that would kind of help me understand the group is in general. And if you're not sure yet, it's okay to say you're not sure. There's no right or wrong answer. So kind of tell me, you want to start with? Just like no.
I would like a master's degree in urban planning.
Okay.
And I'm interested in doing visual planning.
Okay.
So I see outside of urban. I would like to focus on impactful things, but also things that can improve the aesthetics of whichever be.
Okay.
Interested in urban planning, focusing on specifically affordable.
I'm interested in PhD in urban original science. I have also a study for sustainability and economic development. But for my PhD, I want to do research on rural economic development. And then PhD.
They are one of the sciences. Not sure yet.
Okay, totally okay.
I'm interested in QC architecture.
I'm also interested in urban and regional sciences, the PhD in urban and regional. PhD in urban and regional.
I think we caught a wave, PhD.
Master in architecture.
Wait, my friend.
Oh, doctorate and PhD in regional sciences,
Okay.
urban and regional.
Yeah, PhD urban and regional sciences, and my focus will be on affordable housing. We see how we can actually make a research to find solutions to providing affordable houses, and not just for the United States here. I mean, the solutions that we find, we might come our way than just be something that will go international scale, but also afford here.
Yeah, amazing.
You can say PhD. And
So you see in urban and regional sciences, I like to focus on its social and behavioral effects. Interesting.
PhD in urban regional sciences, and I want to focus on vehicles and how they help underserved communities.
A master's of master work.
Do I want either a master's of science in architecture or a master's?
It's in my.
Congrats out, Mom. I want for the, you have come to have already. So I want, other people, so, not sure. Master,
Oh, you're like 20.
yeah, that's why.
Well, that's smart. Get all the information. Yes, you know about it.
Also PhD in aerodynamic sciences. I'm currently doing research on stress resilience on my master, but I'm really running out of time, so I just want to extend my interest. Yeah.
Always adding. PhD, urban and regional science.
Awesome. So I love that you guys already have a really good feeling of where you want to go. And just from some of my people who are in between, just kind of knowing at least your options that you want to do. And so I always say, you know, we're probably going to skip this particular one, but no, we'll talk a little bit about it. So since people know what their career field they're kind of interested in and kind of what types of degrees you're wanting to go in, a lot of some of what you said, you know, graduate degree really is, you know, needed, sometimes maybe required or not. And then the potential degree type that aligns with your goal. So we kind of talked a little bit about it. It seems like you guys have a good feeling about which one aligns with where you want to go and kind of what you're interested in. So we will skip this one. Talking out loud. See, let's talk a little bit about funding. Who's worried about funding everything? Okay. Everybody. Okay, I'm transparent, so I love to just be transparent about, you know, funding, right? You know, a friend of mine who's an accountant, she always says, you know, you gotta take the monster out of money. So you have to talk about it and to talk about, you know, what your plans are, so you can be most informed to be able to make a good plan for yourself, right? Everybody wants to be able to do that, especially when we talk about graduate education, right? How many people are I'm gonna say first gen, I know that's a hard topic because you might not be first gen undergrad, but how many people would be the first in their family to potentially be getting an advanced degree? Okay, got you, right? So that's a huge thing, right? And huge information. So let's talk about the different types of funding that occur. So the first type that I like to talk about are fellowships, right? Who's heard of a fellowship? Okay, got you. So fellowships, again, are those competitive, usually merit-based awards providing that financial support through stipend and tuition coverage. And a lot of them sometimes do also include health insurance or different things like that too. On the university level, through my office, the graduate professional office, if I could talk graduate professional school, we offer a bevy of different types of fellowships as well. So what that means, and like Dr. Reed talked about, there's different levels of funding. So you can have university level, you can have departmental level, sometimes program level, or even external, which is national or international funding or fellowships that you might also secure for yourself. So the funding that we offer at our office, there's a couple different ones. Some of them do require you to be nominated by the program, and they are based on like first year or different things like that. One of them being like a Velas Johnson and different things like that. And if you are meet the criteria for that, some departments handle that a little different. They might reach out to you and they'll nominate a selected individual from that round. Other ones might be some that you really need to look at the criteria. So I always encourage folks when we talk about any fellowship, whether that's in our office, this goes to our funding page too for our office, that QR code. But whenever you're looking at any types of fellowships, the first thing you need to look at is the criteria, right? And I say that and I stress that because sometimes you might life happens, you're looking at a lot of different things, you're like, I thought I read that and I thought I met criteria for it. You did all this work and then turns out that you didn't. And then you could have focused that energy on something else or applying for a different fellowship that you did. And so I really want to stress that because there's so much money that gets left on the table because not enough people applied for it or not enough people who met the correct criteria apply for it. Because I don't like to deny people, my colleagues who work on that don't like to deny people. So always read that criteria, right? Some of that might mean that you have to be from a certain region, or that you have to, you know, domestic versus international students, or different things like that. So you really want to read that criteria for yourself and be knowledgeable, so that when you're making and doing your application, also follow every detail to a T. If you're like me, I have ADHD. So I'm a person where I'm gonna reread it to make sure I read it right the first time, right? Because sometimes I might fly through it, I'm like, oh, no, let me read it slow, and let me really make sure I'm paying attention, because the devil is in the details, right? Because if we ask for 2 pages double space and give me 1 page single space, does that follow the criteria?
Oh, no.
No, and it might have been the best written personal statement or research statement on that single space 1 page, but it did not meet my criteria, right? And so we want to make sure that we're really, really paying attention to those little nuances of what those criteria are, or any ancillary information. A packet is not complete until all of the elements are aligned, meaning turned in and done, right? And you cannot go past the deadline, right? Because with funding, we really have to be on top of that. And so I always stress that when people get it done early. You always think you have more time than you do. So start early, plan early, do your elements early. And make sure if you're going to use certain statements like a personal statement or a research statement and kind of reuse it and recycle it, make sure that we actively write that well and don't not update it. And I mean to say that because I have read some that were obviously not for what they were applying for, but they were just reusing it. And I get it because you get busy, but you just really want to make sure we're making those fine tunes, because people can tell when something's been, I wouldn't call it canned, and reused, right? We want to make sure we're being intentional with our writing. And if you struggle with that, or you're like, hey, I'm just a person, I need to write it all down on paper, get it out of my head, do that, utilize your writing center. If you don't know where your writing center, most schools have one. If you're not sure what your school has, definitely look up your website, they'll show it. Utilize your writing center. They will actively work with you on a personal statement. We'll talk a little bit about that too, but making sure that you're taking the time to write that well, because that is how you stand out in a lot of application packets, especially when we talk about funding, right? Or even if it's not asking for a personal statement, any questions they're asking you to answer in a paragraph form or whatever that means, you really want to make sure that your writing is well, no grammatical errors, no, spelling errors, any of that. It really needs to be clean, concise, and bring across what you're trying to answer, right? If I have to figure out what you're talking about in the response, then it's going to be harder for me to want to cross you to the next round for finalists when we talk about applications or fellowships, right? And so my cohort and colleague in my office, Isa Jernick, oversees our fellowships alongside our assistant dean, Dr. Shannon Walton. And so that's on our university level. We have reviewers, different things like that from different colleges that do that. And so there's so many different ones, and I always encourage people to look at that. Now, external fellowships. So this is like National Science Foundation, National Institute of Health, all of that good stuff. You can apply for those as well. And I always tell people, make sure that you're reading those criteria and doing that well too. You know a person who can help you find out what fellowships you might meet criteria for? A graduate advisor? Yes. What's another person that we don't always go and talk to? We used to when we were in elementary school. I mean, yes, that too. You should totally have a counselor. If you don't, get a therapist. That's, hey, great. Your librarian.
Where is that?
In the library. So how many people, when you were maybe little, if you went to elementary school and different things like that, you would go to a library actively, right? As a group, you would go and do all the things and have that, talk to your librarian. Librarians can help you, especially at university levels, help you look up external fellowships. And help you look up what that, how to look those up. They can talk you through that, especially if you're an A&M student here. Our librarians are amazing. They can help you do some of that legwork as well. You can also communicate with our office, with the amazing people here in architecture as well, to look at some of those specific ones that might be criteria for what you need. And when I talk about fellowships also, a little caveat, a lot of those are going to be more branded towards our doctoral students, just because a lot of those are going to be more multi-year, multi-tier funding opportunities, not always. There are some fellowships inside of our office that both master's students and doctoral students can apply. So always look at those caveats depending on what type of degree you are pursuing too, right? Okay, scholarships. So we still have scholarships in graduate school as well. Academic achievement recognition with financial support. So whether that is at our level or even through our scholarships and financial aid office, which is Aggie One Stop, there might be some that you might be criteria for. So looking and searching those or any external ones, national ones that you also might need criteria for. Assistantships. So I am not the human resource officer of the folks who work there. However, we do always encourage folks to look at the possibility of assistantships. Those are your TAs, your non-teaching, non-research folks who also might do administrative roles. Or you also have people who will do your research assistants as well. I always say like lab managers or do different research for professors. Now, the caveat with that too, no matter if you're at an R1 institution or different ones like that, they get going really fast, right? And so you have to be on that of applying. Every department is a little different. And so some departments might have a bevy of different offerings for that. Other departments work differently, right? And so you can have an citizenship not in your department, right? We have the citizenships in our office. Other offices have those as well that are the non-teaching ones. So you would help us with projects or different things like that within the office. Those are available. And a lot of those are offered at least at A&M level in what we call jobs or Aggies. So they get posted. But a lot of times the good thing which you can think about is, okay, I might not have secured a citizenship quite yet, but I know I want to at least get my foot in the door. You can apply to be what's called a student assistant or a student intern in different offices. And that's a way to get into your foot in the door. You get paid hourly and you move through there. And you move that way, and then it could potentially lead within that office if that position becomes open to be able to then become what we call a Gantt or different things like that, right? Because a lot of times, at least within our institution, but you always want to read the job description. A lot of the Gantt positions do cover tuition and fees as well as health insurance. Every institution, every program, department can be different, but that's just something to think about. Travel awards. We also offer that within our office. So if you are thinking about presentations, poster or paper presentations, or anything like that you want to go do at a conference level, you can apply for travel funding through our office as well. And then there's also different types of funding you can do, not just with our office, but with other offices that will also help you with travel or different things like that. There might also be departmental clubs or different things like that that might offer student travel to conferences up to a certain amount and doing that. So let's do a short brainstorm. Get back into your same groups or a different one, whatever you want to do. What funding strategies could work for you? A fellowship, a citizenship, or other funding sources. Considering like, are you planning to self-fund? Or not, and even with self-funding, I didn't go into it because Aggie One Stop I think is a little bit better at that than me, of talking about the nuances of loans, private, public, different things like that. But just getting your mind thinking about and demystifying that, right? Let's talk it out loud a little bit about what are some of the strategies you're thinking about of funding, your degree and what that can look like. So let's think about, 3 minutes in our groups and our pairs to talk a little bit about what some of your preliminary funding opportunities might be for yourself.
How to make the money. I was fellowship, but primarily other funding. I can't explain. What about you?
This house.
My life, huh?
Howdy, we're gonna come back together. We demystified some of the monster. Hopefully I didn't scare you guys, of just getting you thinking about some next steps with that. Let's go to the next part. Building your application. Right? And so one of the things I always talk about is statement of purpose or personal statement. You hear people say that. Communicating your research interests, your career goals, and fit with program. Being clear and specific about the why. Why are you here? Why you? Why now? Why this program? Right? Anything in your life, you have to know the why. If you don't know the why are you doing it? Because if you can't explain it to me, then you can't explain it to yourself, so you shouldn't be doing it. Right? It starts with you. Okay, and so letters of recommendation, what are those?
No.
Yeah.
So you can contact a person, either in your academic, or your professional, career and ask them to write a small snippet about you and your qualifications and why you'll be a great fit for the program.
Of course. How do you ask for those?
I would send, a real, specifically worded email and, asking for their input and their help when it comes to applying for, the graduate school. And then also, if you go to your community organization, whether it be church or your charitable, organization, I can just ask the, either the supervisor or the manager or whatever, ask them to, give them a quick little snippet and email it. And hopefully y'all have like that email link to where they'll ask for you.
Yes.
To send it out to whomever.
Yeah, most programs think it is like, back in the day it was not like that. You had to write them and mail them. However, now most of them are electronic, so there's a link and they just go in and fill it out. However, that's amazing. The worded email, what exactly you need, it's gonna be great. Another caveat I would put to that too, especially if it's people that you interact with well. So like your current professors or a previous professor that you stayed in contact with, a previous, let's say, field advisor, or someone you've worked with on an internship, or if you worked into the field as a full-time staff, maybe the supervisor there, if that's allotted. Some of the programs have very specific criteria on who can be a letter writer. So making sure you know that as well, because we don't want to get someone take their time to write a letter and then they're not actually able to they don't meet the criteria for that, right? Maybe it has to be a current or previous professor, it has to be a previous supervisor or something like that. So just making sure we're caveating that. Another one that I would put too is adding in your packet. Get a small packet you make for them. So what schools you're applying to and you're asking them to write the letter for, how they'll need to do it. If it's electronic, a link will be sent to you or emailed. What email they check regularly is where you would want to send this to, right? Because not all professors check all the emails all the time, right? Because they're busy. So which one do they check well? And what does that look like? If you're currently in contact with them or are around the area, trying to drop in their office hours, making an appointment, right? Because life be lifing, even for professors. So you want to make sure that you're not taking up too much of their time, that you're being concise and really intentional about your time and what you're asking them, right? Or anybody else that you're asking to write letters. And so we really want to make sure that we're giving them the ample amount of information. Now, also caveat, you want to ask people who know you well, who know your work, who know your abilities, and who can really speak to that, even if it's in, the electronic form, that they have examples of things that you have done, whether that was in their courses, in the lab that you worked in, or the field work, or the job you had with them, that they can really speak to what that looks like. I always tell people to, in your packet, include a CV or a resume. Anything that you did in their course, how many courses you took with them, what your grade was, and also any ancillary work you did with them, whether that was field work, experiments, or, co-wrote a paper, or whatever it might have been, that they are just refreshed on all of that, have it in one place, they don't have to find it, right? And sitting down for a couple of minutes and talking with them about what your goals are, what you're trying to accomplish, what, their help can be for that, right? Because they can also tell you no. So be prepared for the no, right? I always think about this. A no sometimes is just not right now, right? It is not the end of the world. Everybody famous, everybody who's done well, everybody who's done things that they're proud of have been told no. Right? And so be ready, because they might be in a season they don't have time to write a letter. Or they might be in a season where they don't feel like they can really speak to the level of your work that's required for a letter like that, because that, you have to think about it, it's attached to their name. They're vouching for you, right, to go into this program. And so we want to make sure that we're providing ample information. We're asking people who know us well. Don't ask the professor you took that one class with freshman year who don't know your face. Right? Because they can write it. It might not be a nice letter, because you don't have to see it, right? Only the committee will see it. We don't want to have that happen. We want to prepare ourselves well. And we want to prepare them well in advance. So let's not wait till a week before the applications due to ask our professors or our supervisors or whoever we need to write those letters. We want to give them ample time to sit with that letter, to redraft, whatever it is, because we want to be the best letter, right? So give yourself that grace and give them that grace and time, right? In those conversations. Resume or CV, how many people have a resume? Up to date one. How many people have a curriculum vitae, which is CV? Okay, that's where your academic kind of life will live, right? Okay, if you are not sure about if your resume is kind of like looks well or your CV looks well, utilize your career center. Every school has some type of career center. Sometimes it might be hybrid with your writing center, just depending on how big your school is. But check in with them. They can help you review your resume, your CV, help you curate that, especially to what you're applying to make sure it has all of your best, things listed. If you're doing your CV, any publications, poster presentations, all of the things you're trying to put into one area. Your application timeline. Please build a Google Sheet, an Excel. If you're a paper person, make a poster on your wall, whatever it is that you want to make a timeline. Okay, for project management, when you have something that's due, let's say 6 months from now, how do you make a timeline to achieve it? How do you start?
Deadline.
And work backwards. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You work backwards. So if my deadline is December 1st, that my application is due, that means I need to create a timeline that works backwards of when I need to have my milestones done for that application, right? So then I can be tracking myself and internal deadlines for myself that, oh, okay, I need to have my personal statement written by this time, reviewed by multiple people. Need to review that personal statement from the writing center to mama, daddy, grandma. Even if they don't even know what you're applying for, they know your voice. They know who you are, right? And they can speak to that. Sounds like my baby, right? So we want to make sure that we're tapping into those resources, right? And so building that timeline back, so we're making sure that we're applying in the correct form, because if you're doing multiple applications, it gets confusing, right? So have all that sourced in one template that has application deadlines, financial aid deadlines for those respective departments and or institutions, any type of, campus tours you need to do, any type of looking at housing in the area, whatever that might need to do for yourself. All of that needs to be written down. And think about that. And so we're going to skip the personal statement starter activity. However, I will send this to Dr. Reed if she wants to send it out. I want you to be thinking and be able to make yourself one sentence that tells you why this field, why now, why me. And I'm gonna encourage you, when you write it, you can take a picture of it if you like. When you write this is gonna be the start of your personal statement, if you have not already started doing that. And the reason I'm gonna tell you to keep it is because on your rainy days, when you're waiting on your applications to come back and you're discouraged, you're gonna be able to look back on this sentence and say, I know why I'm applying to these programs. I know why I'm doing what I'm doing, and I know I can do it, right? You need to have those mementos. I call it a good file. Whether you keep a paper of it or a digital file, keep them. Because graduate school is gonna have times where you doubt why you're there. Even from applying to getting in to finishing. And so we want to make sure we keep those things that reminds us of our why, right? While we're here. Yes. Yeah.
And a little bit of detail, academic honors in the city. Because usually some universities, when you apply, they ask you to write honors in the city.
Right.
I don't really like them. Has the resident has enough space to like to write academic honors?
So I would say that would live more on your CV. In that area, and you would highlight that in your personal statement as well, but the actual bulk of that could probably live in your CV. For folks who won't ever need a CV, you don't have to worry about that if it's not asked for that, but I would live that more in that CV area for like documentation, and then highlight it, like you were saying, in your personal statement, but you don't have to necessarily have it in your resume.
Oh.
So, for example, students apply to this discouragement, to write a statement. What happens if you reach out to the professor from Harvard? You know the visa restriction, the CV, where you can, they write a recommendation for to continue. I'm not saying anything is inherently wrong with that, and sometimes we will never know what that's,
Right.
but I'm wondering how that impacts, how that's received.
Right, and I will say for committee wise, like, when it's coming from a recommender, I don't think they're really as much checking, like, this is the guy generated. I think they're trying to look for the meat of the content. And, like, are they speaking about that student? Are they using that to collect their thoughts? Like, how is that looking? I think the reason they're caveating that for yours is because they want to make sure it's your voice and not being generated and kind of, for lack of better words, hallucinated by, generative AI, and that to show that you actually have those writing skills versus a recommender. So there's no, like, it's not going to go through the AI channel of like the recommender used, generative AI. They just more so put that on the student just to make sure you have those skills.
Oh, for the student, understand like it's for the recommender, as curious if that is like this sounds just like a letter I got for, someone else, or this sounds incredibly generic, even though the student has XYZ.
Yeah. And I will say, like, at that point, I would hope that the recommender would take some time to, like, maybe use AI to generate thought bubbles for them, but actually take the time to write it. That would be my hope, but can't always, see that. I don't necessarily think the reviewers would automatically think this sounds too generic. I think they would just try to, like, with the other letters, does it sound like this student in general? And just to wrap things up, because I know we're getting ready to go to lunch at the club, but thriving as a scholar, just reminding yourselves that you are not imposters who are meant to be in these spaces, that applying for them means that you can do this, right? And mentorship and community, if you do not have a mentor, you need to find one, right? Somebody who is in the field you're interested in, even if it's a peer that's currently in a type of grad application that you're interested in, you need to be talking to those people and keeping them in your corner. And remember your why. Why are you here? Why now? Why me? Right? You need to know what all that looks for. And remembering who benefits from your academic achievements. Is it that family member who's not seen anybody go and do this before, who might then do it too? Is it your mom and dad who gets that pleasure of seeing you walk around, walk through the stage and get hooded as a doctor and then become a researcher and a professor? What does that look like, right, for yourself? And remembering that, keeping that filed in your brain for this application cycles and what that would look like, because you can do it, right? And then this is my contact information. If you want to have a 30-day commitment of like, how do I start this process for myself, you can do it. And I'm also available to chat with you guys. I'm happy to talk about it. We're here to provide support for you students, not only in this stage of your graduate journey, but also when you're here with us, with our professional development and different things like that we offer. And so with that, I'm gonna leave y'all, but thank y'all for having me and exploring what it means to do graduate school here at A&M.